Well, thank you very much. I'm really, really happy to see so many people here in the dark. And yes, I know there's an A missing from installation. So this is me last year, and that's my bio that he just read. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my background because it's sort of circuitous how I got to where I'm at. And I would say that foregrounded in my life is that I'm a lifetime student. And that's to say that when I was young, I did drawings and stuff because that's all I knew how to do in the suburbs in Pennsylvania. But I always knew that I wanted to be an artist. So I went to art school, and my parents had no hesitation to send me because they knew there was nothing else I would be able to do. And that was very nice of them. Okay, so these are a few works I made as an undergrad. And the reason I'm showing them to you is because as a younger person, I had this fantasy that I wanted to become a motion picture holographer. And I didn't really know what that was, but I thought it wouldn't be cool if light could emanate from the source and people could walk around it and there wouldn't have to be a stage in a theater. You could just have the experience live in your own whatever world you were in. So these for me were my first photographs not having a camera. I had an assignment to make photographs, and I thought, well, I don't want to make photographs because I'm not a photographer. So I went to the science lab and I got these old jars that were being thrown away, and I went to the film lab and I got some film and I melted it, and I made this series that I called Jars Filmed Inside, and I hung it in the window. I set them in the window of the place where I went to school, which was Ohio State, and I studied expanded arts. So I didn't just study expanded arts, I decided I wanted to major in three things. And I called my major aspects of light and motion, technical production, and design. And so I studied fine arts, theater production, and dance lighting design. I thought that might be a good way to make a living and maybe learn something while I was doing it. So these are a few of my light experiments from college, undergrad, and I just wanted to read this to you, which says, in Japanese cultural tradition, the act of emulating the work of great predecessors is called hankadori, which is not hunky-dory, taking up the melody. So it's not looked down upon as mere copying, it is considered a praiseworthy effort. And this is an emulation of Thomas Wilfred, who was a light artist who I really fell in love with when I was young. So I want to share with you, before I go much further, a few of my influences, of which I have very, 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 very many. But I'm just pulling a few out that really popped out in my life of inspiration as an artist. One is Wolfgang Leib. The reason he inspires me is because he collected buttercup pollen, among other kinds of pollen, and he sifted it onto the floor in perfect squares in places like castles and museums. And he said, if you think this is yellow, you've completely missed the point. And the thing I love about his work is that it's actually like the essence of life, pollen, which still blows my mind every time I think about it. And also it's a work that's ephemeral, and it's not really about him, it's about being and sort of celebrating life as I see it. Christian Marclay is another person who I've always really, really been inspired by. You probably know his piece, it's the 24-hour clock. But if you don't know Christian Marclay, you should look into him because he's an amazing artist. I think he's one of the most significant artists alive today. And then Alfonso Schilling made this tent that was like camera obscura that he wandered around in the desert with. You guys could do that. You have a desert, right? There's no desert where I live. And then Janet Cardiff and George Burris Miller they made this thing called the Paradise Institute, but her work in general really, really inspires me. And she works a lot with photography, experience kind of in the world. She transforms, she really is interested in consciousness and time and how to like have experiences that go beyond the familiar. And then, can anyone say this artist's name? Kai Byung Kyung is how I would say it. The reason I love his work is because, for one, he comes from a family of people who produce fireworks. That's basically how his family made a living. And so he used this discipline that he learned as a young person to express himself. And I feel like sometimes in politics, the less you say, the better. And I feel like this is an incredibly effective resistance kind of image. Oops, we can't forget Frederick Law Olmsted, because he to me is one of my huge inspirations as of late. And that's because he wasn't just a landscape architect, and that said the first landscape architect as we have named them, but he also was really interested in civic mindedness in general. And his work, he made his work very much to serve the public and to create spaces for people to sort of revive their resilience in. Like, who knows a few of the parks? Frederick Law Olmsted, Central Park. Yeah, and the
Boston Public CrossFit Park, UC Berkeley campus,
yeah,
Stanford campus.
yeah, yeah. So, but I bet you didn't know that he wrote essays on anti-slavery, and he was the first. He was the sanitary commissioner for the Civil War. Isn't that crazy? And he was the first person to bring ships to port that had hospitals on them, and created an ambulance service to bring people from the front lines to the hospital to help save their lives. So what an amazing guy. And then, do you guys know Disappearance of Rituals, Byung-Chul Han? It's also a really amazing book that I refer to often. And Susan Sontag, her work on photography I find really inspiring. And then Willem Flusser is one of my all-time inspirations. He died in '92, but he was a philosopher, and he was he fled Austria to Brazil, and it was during the Nazi invasion, and he made an incredible life for himself. And he's got really short books that are really well worth reading, and he talks about the freedom he found in not having a home. So I highly recommend looking into him. So when I was in college, I studied lighting design for dance. I fell in love with lighting design for dance as a pretty young person, and it was a really amazing way to make a living. And speaking of inspirations, over time, over many years, I actually got to work with some of my inspirations. One of them was Meredith Monk, another was Anne Hamilton, and we created this piece together. I did the lighting, and first it was created in this tower that Anne Hamilton made in Northern California. And the idea behind this tower is that it's a double helix form, and on the one side stands the audience, and on the other side stands the performer, and this beautiful interplay of experience happens with music and light and sound. We then translated the piece that we made for that building to the stage on BAM, and this is one of the things I really love to do, and I think that here you can see how kind of architecture plays into my work as an artist. I just love space, and if you're a light artist, space is everything, because light is all about the tension in space, and it doesn't really exist unless it has something to like bounce up against. So these are just a few images from my lighting design days, which feel very far behind me, but they're really only 10 years behind me. So it was really fun to be a lighting designer, but it was a difficult lifestyle for me because you travel a lot, which is amazing, but you spend a lot of time in the theater, and it's kind of hard to take care of your body and sort of have a sense of the world because you get buried a little bit. So the whole time I was a lighting designer, because I was also very, very much an artist, I was making various kinds of lights for my theatrical and dance and music applications. So like this is a lamp tar, which you can play and it lights you at the same time, and it's banjo, and you can amplify it, and it's super cool, and you can play it in a tree. And this is a gutted heater with the legs ripped off and an MR16 or two stuck inside, and you can spin it on the stage. So I was very, very interested in light in motion, and I really I got a lot of pleasure out of seeing things transform and seeing reality kind of skew before my very eyes. All the things that I thought I assumed were real were just my vision. This is a broom, or a lens broom. And this is where I started to make a transition from being just a lighting designer to making more fine art kinds of work. But that said, I think for me it's a dance every day between life and art, and how that lays itself out. In 2000, I got my first artist residency at the Headland Center for the Arts in San Francisco, and I made a film called When I Was Mongolian in black and white, which kind of drew together my interest in nature and light and motion and performance. And from there, I think for me, there was no turning back. I really realized that I had to become an artist full time. So I decided in my early 40s to go back to grad school. Wow, what a stupid thing to do, you would think, right? But I had an artist professor say to me when I was young, don't be an artist unless there's absolutely nothing else you can be. And I always took that to heart. And I realized I really felt at some point in my life after moving back to California from New York that I was going to have to jump off a cliff if I didn't do what I really wanted to do. So I just bit the bullet and I applied for graduate schools, and I got into some. And I actually ended up getting a couple of MFAs because I kind of fell in love with learning. So this is Vincent van Gogh, post-impressionist painter. This is A Night Cafe, his painting. And because I was interested in motion and this idea of bringing painting into the 21st century as I saw it, I took his painting and I spun it on a motor, and I extracted the color, and I put it into a bunch of video effects, and I slowed it down to 1%, and I made this piece, which had, so this was sort of the basis of my graduate thesis work. And basically what this is are 2 8-foot-long prints with a gap and a couple of video projectors projecting onto them. Here's the first video. And this is 10 years later. I had a billboard made in Grosvenor Square in London for a light festival. So this is a really large scale print with the video projected onto it from Vincent van Gogh's painting. And this is Bartok, folk melody number 5, slowed way down. So this is just to say that I like to make work again and again until it resolves itself for me. And this particular piece, I felt like I was finally satisfied. There's, oh well, there was one in here that's missing now. In regards to interfacing with architecture, I collaborated with an architect at San Francisco University, and we did this piece called the Slots Project. So we lit all the interstitial spaces between these houses on Golden Gate Avenue in San Francisco. And what kind of happened is that the street became like a live theater. So when people were having dinner inside or sitting in their living room, it was just like incredible. You'd sit across the street and it just looked like this wild performance was going on. I've always wanted to do a whole city block like this, so let me know if you have any ideas of where I could do that. But it was a super fun project. And this is going to be a video as well. And so this piece I did for a VR show. And so everybody else was doing all this digital stuff, and I'm super analog from birth. So I decided to create this analog piece that would kind of tweak your idea about what was happening, and then below I would teach you how to fly. And I have to say people were really into it because it involved the body. So you stand on this platform, and when you look into this mirror, you see up and down kind of forever. And then you put these glasses on that I'll show you a little later, and you can fly on this platform. This piece is also in San Francisco. It's called Freely Falling Objects, and it's the first piece I used text in 2017, and it's the text from Willem Flusser's archives, and it's called Freely Falling Objects, Reflections on Meaning from the Flusser Archives. And it was done down at Fort Mason, and I'm just going to show you the video. So for me, the idea behind this piece was that the building was breathing, and I was interested in the relationship between a tent and a piece of architecture, and how, like, what's the difference, and how does wind affect a building? How does wind affect architecture? So I really kind of wanted to get the building to feel like it was breathing. And those are glass block from San Quentin Prison, put through video effects. those are sound waves slowed down and multiplied. So you get the idea. So I teach at Mass Arts in a program similar to, I think, the program here, I'm going to guess. Our program is called Studio for Interrelated Media. And during the pandemic, the first couple of months, because I didn't have to teach, I could teach online, I found this property up in Rockport, and I decided to move out of Boston. Because I never really liked Boston, if you want to know the truth, especially after San Francisco. But suddenly I was happy again. I had this 150-year-old barn and a little house, and I started to connect a lot more with nature, and connecting more with nature made me realize that I was interested in working with light in 24-hour periods instead of just in the dark. I wanted to work with daylight. And so I turned that shed that you just saw into a little light studio. And the summer of, I had a sabbatical for a year, and I had a student who was an intern and also a collaborator, it turned out. I decided to make these optical devices in this studio. So this was our first prototype. We made it out of cardboard. I had this vision that if you put a cell phone in this thing and put a lens in front, that maybe young people would be more engaged with looking at nature and also be able to like take residue away, which would be like a photograph. It's pretty good idea, I thought, and I think I was right. So we started making a series of these, and we made a whole bunch of different kinds because I'm very, very passionate about optics. We used a laser cutter to cut the prototypes, and we imagined this kit, this like optical device kit, which we're still working on and starting to sell. And I wanted to bring up that the other thing that happened to me while I was working more in nature was that I was noticing how much less control I had over my life than I thought I had. And because I had less control over my life, because nature is nature, I started getting much more flexible about how I tried out ideas. So I would make things that were really ugly and not care, like this, because I was looking for a certain kind of effect. And I thought, well, get to the effect and later worry about the aesthetics. So this was like, so basically, this is another video. This is the effect I was looking for. And over a period of like 6 months, I figured out how to enliven my light studio with really cheap strips of mylar that I cut from a long roll. And now I'm in the process of trying to figure out how to make them aesthetically pleasing so that other people can enjoy having this sort of light play in their homes too. I've become more and more interested in like people's quality of life and how to bring beauty and transformation through optical things to people's houses. My theory is that when things are moving, like video, it creates a similar sense to what happens in nature by a pond or a stream or the ocean. And so here's what one looks like. So all these optics, they're plastic, and they all do different things, and the ones that work the best are the ones that have imperfections in them. So I got really obsessed with this for a whole year, and I'm not finished. But maybe you can see why. Like, isn't that amazing? It's crazy. And look at the flowers. There they are. So that gives you, okay, so in the meantime, I also got this show in Japan, and I knew I wanted to make optical devices and do the show with optical devices. These are from that show. These ones striate your eye so that the world looks like it's more linear patterned. These are dichroic cubes, and this is just an experiment I did with a reflector from a lamp, but it's fun because you can kind of see and walk around, and it also looks really dazzling. And I find that the more interested and curious you are as a viewer, the better the work is, because the work is actually your experience. And what I'm trying to do is like create these windows for you to, or vistas for you to explore, and kind of get out of your way. So it's up to you in the end. I also was interested in making just mobile optical devices in general. So that summer with my intern, who was also my student at Mass Art, who has now become my collaborator, we just did experiment after experiment. We were just on fire together, like looking at the world, working in the day, working at night, taking all the old farm implements that were around the barn and transforming them into these things with, dichroic filters on them and stuff. Taking photos in the woods, imagining these rolling down streets in the city. And this is one of the pieces that Sam had these cones that he had made a different piece with, and I thought, well, we should make this like multi-scope, like telescope, but project a video through it. So we did that one night and put it on a tripod. And it's interesting for me how mediums kind of dance between each other once you're thinking more about light and less about medium. It doesn't really matter what you use because everything has the aspect of light in its essential nature, like seeing everything as light. It's kind of amazing. And that said, so this is my flight to Tokyo, and I guess I just live in a world where I think about light a lot. This was just a tin can I saw in Tokyo on my way to my installation, and this was a sad owl that was locked in a cafe, an owl cafe in Tokyo. And this was an incredible artist's ceramic compound where he made this kiln for the whole village. So like lots and lots and lots of people could all fire their work at the same time, which to me, this was just like an astounding, incredible thing, that a person wouldn't just take their own individual practice and like hoard it, but would just sort of, reach out and say, let's all make this happen. These are just photographs that I took at the Kyoto University of the Arts, where I went to see this special exhibition of the students who had a competition in Nabuta making, and this happens every year there. They take all the freshmen in all disciplines, and they take 40 students in each cohort and give them one professor, and they basically compete against each other. They're given all the same techniques, all the same lights, the same bamboo structure, materials to work with, and then this master from Hokkaido comes down and judges the competition. And it's a great way for all of those freshmen to get to know each other and also learn similar skill sets and sort of get beyond what they think they're going to be doing. So this was my piece, Evolution of the Unseen was what it was called, and I did this in October of 2023. And there were multiple things that you could do in this gallery. And I basically brought a blue suitcase to Japan and went to this tiny little space called the Contemporary Art and Spirits Gallery. See how tiny it is? And I have to say, it was like very humbling for me because they didn't give me any money, and it was a tiny space and it was in the middle of nowhere. But what happened is I just kept kind of leaning into my fascination. And I love Japan. I've been there 4 times now, and now I'm studying Japanese kind of, informally because I want to go back. And so I opened up that blue box, and whatever I had in there, which included these, I made a show out of and added a few shelves. And one of my favorite things to do is to be in the gallery when people are looking and watch them noticing things, because it's just amazing how people's minds work and how some people can be there for hours and hours, and other people like walk in and they walk out because they have other values. They're thinking about other things. So I'll show you more of this later. And if you want to learn to fly afterwards, I did bring a few pairs of glasses. And this stuff, so basically after I made those optical devices, I realized, oh no, I have these optical devices, I'm going to this really boring little square room. What are they gonna look at? So I, through my experiments with those mylar slits, realized that I could maybe get some party razzle dazzle off the internet. And if you want to see what it does, I'm going to show you because it's kind of crazy. So this is one thing that the razzle dazzle does. So you've got the layer of razzle dazzle video looking through the lens, it projecting on the wall. And so it's just this kind of crazy, beautiful, celebratory dance. And it's kind of just what I live for, I have to say. So what ended up happening is very few people came, but I was so enthralled the whole time I was there that I was in the gallery all the time. And I was just like, I was marveling at this. So this is razzle dazzle on the concrete floor in the sunlight at a certain time of day. And the first time I saw this, I was high for 24 hours. I couldn't believe my luck that the sun was coming in the window just the right way. And so it threw all these different projections down and delighted me in a really major kind of way. And suddenly nothing else mattered. Which is like, what a gift to be an artist and get to the point where nothing else matters but like seeing something that isn't even really about you, it's about what you discover. And that is kind of my passion now, is just seeing. But look at that, like that's sunlight, that's only sunlight, it's only daylight. And then it's gone, and it's nowhere, and everything looks dead. So that's for me where sort of your philosophical perspective comes in. Like, how do you move through the world, and like how do you carry yourself, and what do you care about, and what do you cultivate? And I cultivate wonder, and it works really well for me, I have to say. Those are the fluorescent lights. So back to marveling at the world. I met Mary and Jim in Istanbul on the same trip. This is in Turkey right before I met them. But if I don't go out in the world and see incredible things, this was a balloon ride that I didn't want to take because I thought it was too expensive. But boy, am I glad I took it. It really, it's sort of one of those once in a lifetime kinds of things. And the landscape, of course, is just incredible. And I think the dance between experiencing wonder and cultivating wonder is super beautiful and sublime. And I can't get enough of it. This was in Spain, that same trip. Thank God for sabbaticals. This is somebody's art piece in the middle of a square. But look at that. So this piece is the last piece I did before I went back to teaching full-time again. It's called Dream Club Lab, and it happened in San Jose, California. And we put together a proposal, and another really ugly venue, and even uglier inside, oh my God, can you imagine an uglier space? But the thing is that I didn't think about what it looked like. I thought about the volume of space. What could I do with a volume of space, and what would light look like projected onto it? So the scale was really overwhelming, but it was myself and my collaborator, Ian Winters, and we took it on, and it took us a really long time, and we got paid okay to do this. It took us, I'm going to say I came back and forth from Boston 3 or 4 or 5 times. It took us easily 3 weeks to install this, and I'm showing you some of the sort of back end behind what we're up to, because we controlled everything digitally, the LED strips, the lights that we bought, and moved the video projectors. We had some little robots that we put lights and a live camera feed on. And my partner, Ian, is super into technology, and this is the way his mind experiences beauty. I find it completely my mind just shuts down when I look at a square like that. But I love what it does, and that's the beauty of collaborating. And we really trust each other. We don't always understand each other. He thought my razzle dazzle was really freaking weird. It's okay. And I thought the fact that he wanted these bots wandering around the space seemed really whatever. But when you put it all together, it works really nicely. And we know that through the test of time. We started in theater together with me doing lighting design and hiring him for video. But over the years, he's really matured a lot as an artist, and we're peers now. So this is, again, sunlight, if you can believe it, and razzle dazzle. And then these are little strips of mylar that I threw in at the last minute. And at a certain time of day, they dance around the space. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but this elates me nonstop. Maybe I should be put somewhere quietly in a room. It's possible. Well, actually, I am put somewhere quietly in a room in Rockport where I can watch all the razzle dazzle I want all day long. So this is some of the video that happened at night. So this installation, we wanted to create what we call the Dream Club Lab, which would be a place for people to come and imagine what they could do in this space and put in proposals and have us help them alter it. But they didn't have enough help in their organization, so what ended up happening was just a 1-year-long installation that happened on its own, and they wouldn't let people in the space, which to me seemed so crazy and sad, and antithetical to what we were asked to do, which was kind of create community. So because that was the case, my feeling is that, so that's one thing. This is the sign. This is a thing I discovered with this multiplicity of sources from behind and what it did on the floor with the print. Really amazed me. And there's another quick version. How much time do I actually have? Is this a 1 hour thing? Okay. So we're close, but I want time for questions. So this is how we transform the space. And out of our frustration with not being able to work with the community, I decided that I was going to, well, two things. So I decided I was going to create a class called Dream Club Lab, which I did. But as soon as I got back from Japan, I decided I wanted to share this experience with some of my students who were missing me for the year. So I pulled a few of them aside and we recreated a version of the piece that was in Japan together in this other gallery in Boston, which is really satisfying. I personally love the dance between learning and teaching and being taught by my students, and also like giving up control and letting them infuse whatever I'm starting with to become more fully collaborative. And I think especially as I'm getting older, that it's like a really exciting process for me. So like I wouldn't have done certain things that they chose to do, but it was really, really satisfying to work with them. I'm going to show you just a few little crazy optical effects. So every lens does something completely different, which I find amazing. And this is Sam, my star collaborator. He was a student and now we are starting like a optical device sideline business together. We're going to sell them at museum stores. So the Dream Club Lab, I taught this last semester and it was really a blast. We talked a lot about experiential design, speculative design, art installation. We went, this is my barn in its best light, in the daylight with a lot of bubbles. I love bubbles. You can get a bubble machine for $10, just so you know, like, and they're really like, you can't believe how much ecstasy is created. I've really never seen a person not get really happy when they shoot a bubble gun. These are my students. They have a lot of fun in their lives and they express themselves beautifully. And it really did become the Dream Club Lab where we could just basically imagine into whatever we wanted to do. These are some rocks in the woods that we did projections on. So basically I assigned them each, by their own choice, a site on the property, and they went to work creating whatever it was that they wanted to create and then share it with the group. So some of them were like art installations, some of them were experiences. This was an experience. We had a fire, we created community. They got outside, which in Boston's kind of a not outside place. And we had a blast. And these are, do people know Future Farmers? Okay, so Future Farmers are some of my dearest friends and I've done 4 or 5 collaborations with them. So I'm just going to show you the one I did very recently, which is this one. It was called Trading Senses, and they asked me to come be their dramaturge, not knowing that they needed a lighting designer too, but I'm not surprised because they kind of run by the seat of their pants. But they were working for Meta, and they were getting paid pretty well. And they were trying to kind of tweak Meta's minds in this particular group that was studying what kind of, I don't know what they were studying, to be honest, speculative design or something like that. So the first thing they did was they brought a rock into the conference room when they started their residency there for a year. And this rock became like this cornerstone of their residency, and the people who they were working with sprayed it so that the moss wouldn't die for a whole year, and it got into the show, as it were. So it's also like they commissioned us to make some optical devices for their interaction with Meta, and the performance that was the sort of culminating performance. And these are some of their intern students who had a blast, who were amazing. And this is Amy's process. Every day she draws each scene and reimagines like what happens. And this is a plot of the grid from the theater in the round that we took over. This is us using optical device handles with some of their technical things. This is a dancer, Rachel. Trying to remember Rachel's last name. Who created. So basically, what they did is they paired one artist with one technical person, and they just had them have an exchange. And in that exchange, they kind of had little paradigm shifts between each other. And this is just to say, so they just do crazy, wonderful, amazing things, and I help them sort of structure it and make it make sense. And then this is observatory. So there were 3 sites: observatory, an archery field, and a theater in the round. And this is people in the audience getting ready to go into the theater, and a woman playing a score from a man who was an astronomer who also wrote music like this. And there are the archers, and I'm going to go through this really quickly, just as these are eyeballs, so they're porcelain that Michael froze and handed out to the audience, and then played like metal music and had everybody throw them into the middle of the room, which was really fun. But this is to say that I love collaborating, and I think it really kind of keeps your juices flowing, and I think it's a really wonderful way to proceed with life. And I'm going to show you, I think, one more piece, and then so the most recent thing I've done is called the Gantry Crane Project, and this is in San Francisco. This crane is 40 stories high and 2 football fields long. It's huge. It's the port that they brought parts of the atom bomb into. This port has a long history and a troubled history, and it's a toxic site. And they were honoring, there's an artist co-op sort of there in the Hunters Point buildings, and artists have been there for 40 years using those buildings. So we were there to sort of celebrate that and also do some investigations, because we're going to do this for 3 weeks with a lot more technical accessibility. We just had like a very small budget for this, but we just got a grant to do it for real. So, but this is video. This is in 14 hours we made this happen, which I was pretty surprised by. But it's going to be a beautiful project when we do it full on. And that is what I had to share with you. Thank you. Is there some anything? Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have some questions.
Yes.
Have you ever considered like weaving the mylar strips together into something?
Nope. I can't break the code, to be honest, on those mylar strips. They're making me crazy. I think it's the wrong material. I think it's the reflective thing that I'm in love with, and the mobility, like the fluidity of them. But I don't think, like, it's... I've had it outside for a year, and it just... It's not the right stuff. It's, you know... It produces this incredible effect, which I like a lot, but I have never tried to weave it. I'll give it a shot, see what it's like. Thank you. Yes?
Have you ever considered a sound-based light projection? Like pretty much like light that responds to sounds?
Yes and no. Things that are really automated kind of bore me, to be honest. So I kind of prefer... I'm sure it could work, but often when you play music or sound with light, it looks like it's automated, even though it's not. It would be interesting, but I guess I'm not interested in the technology personally. So if I worked with a person like maybe you're interested in that, if I worked with you, I would totally try it. But I wouldn't want to personally exercise the experiment. Do you work with that?
No, I don't really work in it, but it's just something I thought was
Okay.
interesting.
It is interesting, but I think it's, for me, it's for other people. Yes?
I was going to ask, have you ever seen like a film that really used or utilized light in a way that kind of captured your imagination or kind of stuck with you?
Yeah.
Like I said, which examples come to mind?
God, there's so many of them. Well, like, I love Andrei Tarkovsky. Even just like the firelight and like the dance of light on the walls and Andrei Rublev. There's so many. I mean, light is film. So I love light in film in general. Like even just watching somebody with like a shadow in their face. Like I was looking over the shoulder of somebody watching an Al Pacino movie in the plane on the way here, and his face was just lit so well. I just thought, oh my God, it's all about the light. I mean, not all, but light is powerful. And yeah, I love to look at films in light. How about you?
I'm a film major myself, so I'm trying to, I think, better understand how light plays off of environment and atmosphere to, I guess, create a certain theme or push an idea or emphasize a character and motives and stuff like that.
I think I'm really interested in non-reality, which is maybe because I already know what I see. So that's, I think, how I got interested in moving light sources and stuff like that, because it's not really like the sun doesn't, it moves slowly, but it doesn't go like that. And I found, in terms of my films that I made, that using moving light was like where it was at. But I mean, just the sky's the limit with light. Like it's all about what you want to see. And I guess technique, right? I'm really happy that I studied lighting design because I feel like it informs everything I do. I think it would be like if a musician studied classical music. Because I now I feel kind of like a free jazz lighting designer. Like I have the capacity to have no idea what I'm doing and go to these amazing places. So.
you mentioned, speaking of lighting design, you mentioned you did lighting design for theater, and you mentioned it was like kind of a gruesome process. What do you think? How could that process be made better, in your opinion?
What a great question. Well, like it's all about the variables and who creates the like who says that the technicians have to stay for 16 hours? That's what I have to say. Like, I mean, so maybe the technicians only have to stay for 10 hours and you get a different design. So I think it's up to the groups that work. I mean, I always had a rule that I wouldn't work past midnight no matter what, because I really like to sleep. So I think you can kind of set your own limits, but then you have to pay for it. And I think it can be a really satisfying process, but you have to communicate, basically. And I think communication is really, that's what we're not doing, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
So I just communicate more and like make your needs known. Yes?
There was the part where you were showing, you're like, oh, and at specific times of day, the light does this, right? And so thinking about, like, I have a film background and just being on set, you know, there's a lot of times we're shooting on stage and then they're recreating, you know, sort of lighting effects, time of day, etc. And I was just wondering if that was something that you had thought about, like it's like recreating that sun effect, you know, with different,
Yeah.
like 10K lights or something to, you know.
Yes. Like I did a piece at the Grace Cathedral in San Francisco where I used a 20K film movie light up on a, what do you call it? Crane, and just had it pan really slowly through the window like the sun in the morning, and had like Nina Simone playing Who Knows Where the Time Goes, and it looked like the pillars were being strummed with this colored light from the windows. So that totally came from the sunlight. Yeah, the sunlight informs, I think you can, even a tight beam of light, like, can recreate, yeah, I think about that all the time, because it's a dance between the sun and electric light. Yeah.
When you get the opportunity to work in a space like Grace Cathedral or the evolution of the unseen, like that small space, how much observing of light, or like do you just get in there and start playing?
That is a great question. So in the Grace Cathedral, I went in and I did a site visit. I'm about to do a site visit for the Durham Cathedral in England. I'm scared to death because I don't know what it's like. Even though I've been there, I've never thought about making a piece there. And so when I go into a space, I read the space. I feel the space. I can feel the space. And the space usually tells me what to do or what not to do. So in a case like Evolution of the Unseen, I totally winged it. I had no freaking idea even what I was going to do. I knew I would probably have some shelves. I knew I was going to hang some razzle-dazzle somewhere. I had no idea that the sun was in the sky where it was or that it would come in. I was going to depend on maybe other light sources, didn't know. That's why I was so ecstatic, because I lucked out. And the same thing with the other thing in San Jose, totally lucked out on the position of the sun in the sky in relation to the space. Grace Cathedral, I went in and tried stuff, and I bombed so bad the first time that I felt like crying. And I was on the plane on the way home, and that's where I do my good thinking. And I just thought, oh, like, loser USA. Like, you suck. It's going to be awful. Why did they choose you? Like, just totally kind of crumbled. And then I got my aha. Where do they come from? I think they come a lot from failure. Like, trying something and it not working, and then, like, making sure you pay attention to why it didn't work, or what do you want to see that you didn't see. And not being afraid. That's why I showed a few really ugly things, because I now like pride myself in letting myself bear ugly things, because I'm such a snot about my aesthetic And I have learned over the years that it's really not helpful to me, especially it's not helpful to my students, who are also my teachers. But yeah, does that answer your question, Jim?
Like sound is very important to some of your pieces, and like I really wonder how you choose your sound, like that Bartok piece.
Yeah. So sound is not very important in some of my pieces. It's very important in all of my pieces. I'm a musician by historic reality. So it has a huge impact on everything that I do, and sometimes when I collaborate with someone, they choose a different collaborator, and that's so then something else happens. So I'd say sound is most important to me when I have control over like the outcome. And I work with certain composers. One was Floor Van de Velde, who I worked with for like 8 years. The last thing I did that I didn't show you, I've been making some scores myself, but more like DJ sort of style, where I like mix samples of different things together and layer them. But sound is super, super important. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think we have time for one more. Someone's had their hand up for a while over there.
Yeah.
Did you have the opportunity to attend any, kabuki or malt performances while in Japan?
Any what?
Kabuki theater performances while
No, I didn't. Have you?
Oh, yeah.
Do you love it?
Yeah, I go every year.
To Japan?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to get a recommendation on where to go to see it, but I was really... So the one time I went for a longer time, it was for a fellowship, and I wanted to study notions of space and light. And so I sort of, everything had to do with like Team Lab and going to certain parks and installations and stuff. So it's interesting how you like get a seed in your head and then that's what you do, because there's so many choices. So I'll take a note on that though. Thank you.
Elaine's really cool. We learned that today in this talk, and I'm sure that if you have some more questions, you can come up and ask a question, and she'll be happy to answer it. But should we all clap now?
Yeah.